It's a way of the Mr. Quickie, oh yeah.
As you may or may not know, my buddy Doug over on the PineCreek channel has, over a relatively short period of time, refined what I consider to be one of the most powerful arguments against the tribal war god of Abraham, the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving God of the Bible. And before you start raging at me in the comments, yes, I know of Doug's political views and generally find them... Let's just say I find myself opposed. Doug calls this the real problem of evil, and it applies to those embracing the traditional Christian view supported by the Christian Holy Book, which includes eternal conscious torment for non-believers and perhaps others. As I understand it, it does not apply necessarily to universalists or annihilationists, though I'm not sure I understand that correctly or why that would be. Perhaps someone here in the comments can clarify. But Doug makes the point that if Yahweh, the God of the Bible, did not create, if he'd simply remained alone in communion with himself as the Trinity, in utter perfection and goodness, there would be no evil, no sin, and no suffering. He asks a simple question. Imagine that world of pure righteousness, grace, value, benevolence, and compare it to our own, a world filled with evil and suffering. Now, which one is better? Duh, right? I've talked about this in response to the Christian excusagists who claim that the evil in our world is necessary in order to bring about various greater goods. An obvious case of Godsheimer's. As Christians forget that God, prior to creation, was perfectly, completely, and infinitely good, meaning all goods existed prior to creation, making evil unnecessary. This world only diminishes God. Perfection doesn't need a plus one. Anything more is less. My favorite line Doug uses to drive the point home is something like, with an all-powerful, all-knowing God, there is no such thing as God allowing evil. Rather, God is the cause of evil. Of course that's true. I've said something similar using different phrasing. With great power comes great responsibility. With all power comes all responsibility. There is no out for an all-powerful, all-knowing God. If there is evil, it exists because that is exactly what God wanted. The most pathetic part about all of this is that we're talking about a moral principle mere humans have known about and embraced for millennia. It's one of the earliest principles of bioethics, the principle of non-maleficence. In the vernacular, first, do no harm. Even, and perhaps especially in this case, if that means doing nothing. Of course, humans are subject to the law of unintended consequences. We don't always know what the ramifications of our actions will be, either in the immediate here and now or down the road in the future. So, knowing how and when to apply this principle is not always clear to us, and doesn't always benefit our well-being. God, on the other hand, is an omniscient being for whom there are no unintended consequences. He knew exactly what doing something rather than nothing would lead to. He knew that 6 million Jews would be murdered in the Holocaust if he created, that black people would be enslaved for 246 years here in America, and just like Mr. Deity said, I'll allow it. I'll cause it. Along with every other evil and bit of suffering, right down to that paper cut you got this morning opening the mail. I'm telling you, you got to use that thing. Don't try with your finger. It's not going to end well. As an atheist who doesn't care if God exists, even if he does, Doug's argument only clarifies and reiterates my own thinking. If there is a God, we have overwhelming evidence of his sadism, thoughtlessness, and, in the words of Richard Dawkins, his pitiless indifference, making God not just irrelevant, but a moral menace, unworthy even of our interest, let alone worship. Once again, I'm me. Thanks for watching.